Okay, good evening, everyone. And today we will continue on conjunctions and start prepositions. So to start off our class, we have the word of the day, and it is nugatory, adjective. So something described as nugatory is of little or no consequence or effect. Nugatory is also used, especially in legal context, to describe something without operative legal effect. Example sentences. Most of the criticism of the film in the week since its release has been nugatory nonsense. Second example. The law was unenforced and thus rendered nugatory. So nugatory first appeared in English in the 17th century. It comes from the Latin adjective nugatorius, which can mean not only trifling or frivolous, but also futile, which are synonyms of the word. This sense carried over into English as well, and so in some contexts, nugatory means ineffective or having no force, right? So that being said, we move on to problems with conjunctions. So last week we did start on conjunctions. We finished adverbs as well. And we talked about the types of conjunctions, the coordinating, subordinating, correlative. So this week we will focus on the problems we face when writing with conjunctions. So our first one is confusion of like with as. Example, do like I do. Like should be replaced by as, a conjunction joining clauses. So do as I do. Always use as when a verb follows, but the adjective like, because like to, must be used when a noun or pronoun is referred to. A boy like him. Next we have or, wrongly used after neither. Neither cats or dogs interested him. Or should be nor, as either is followed by or, and neither always by nor. And we know that these are examples of correlative conjunctions. They come in pairs. So use of without instead of unless. Example, I will not go without you accompany me. Without is a preposition, not a conjunction. The conjunction unless is required here to join clauses. So I will not go unless you accompany me. So it's very simple so far. For the previous examples, you might have or made those mistakes because you weren't paying attention or you miswrote, etc., etc. So let's continue. Misuse of while. General Smith made a speech while the mayoress presented the prizes. While should be replaced by and or following which, after which, as the two events were not simultaneous but consecutive. Because of course, when someone is making a speech, everyone is sitting down quiet and listening, and then there's a separate section for prize giving. So you have General Smith made a speech and the mayoress presented the prizes, or General Smith made a speech after which the mayoress presented the prizes. Wrong position of correlative conjunctions. Example, I shall neither buy a car nor a caravan. Each one of a pair of conjunctions must precede words that are the same part of speech. So in the first example, neither precedes a verb, which is by, and nor precedes a noun, caravan. So instead, the sentence would write, I shall buy neither a car nor a caravan. So both precede a noun. And lastly, we have error due to omission. Example, his work is no better, and indeed not so good as yours. Than must be inserted after better. So sometimes we take it for granted as we write that The reader must know the context, they must insert some missing words, etc., etc. But generally, especially as you write your essays, make sure that you put in the necessary word so that the sentence is clear and it makes sense. So his work is no better than, and indeed not so good as yours. And so we move on into prepositions. Show the relation between a noun or a pronoun and some other word in a sentence. So that's what prepositions do. They show the relation between a noun or a pronoun and some other word in a sentence. So some examples, we have a gift from Mary. Sorry. So from is a preposition and it would relate gift to Mary, right? And so next example, we have good at chess. At is the preposition, good is an adjective, chess is a noun, work for me, for preposition, work, verb, me, pronoun. So it just shows the relationship between the words. So what are some types or uses of prepositions? So we have prepositions that indicate position or direction. On, in, above, under, to, from, towards, etc., etc. We have prepositions made of two words joined in one, into, throughout, upon, onto, from behind. We have prepositional phrases, on top of, by means of, and with prepositional phrases, they always begin with a preposition and end with a noun, pronoun, or other word group. And lastly, we have prepositions that help to make adjectival and adverbial phrases. The house near the corner, adjective. He ran in front of the bus, adverb, right? So those are the four main uses of prepositions in writing. So now we have idiomatic uses of prepositions indicating time and location. The following are some common ways in which prepositions at, by, in, and on are used. So for time, we have 4 examples here. The wedding ceremony starts at 2 o'clock, so we have a specific time. Our honeymoon plans should be ready by next week, another specific time period. The reception will start in the evening, a time of the day. The wedding will take place on May 1. The rehearsal is on Tuesday, so we have time relating to dates. Yeah, so these are just some ways that prepositions can be used to create time phrases in different sentences. So next we have location. So I will meet you at the zoo. We took a seat at the table. Meet me by the fountain. I enjoyed the bratwurst in Chicago. An excellent restaurant is located on Mulberry Street. Very simple. And just by reading these sentences, you can tell when time is being indicated and when location is being indicated, right? So next we move on to position of prepositions. If possible, avoid ending sentences with a preposition, especially in writing. However, there are some exceptions to this rule in speaking. Example, we say, what are you talking about? Not about what are you talking. So that's just one exception of this rule. So prepositional phrases should be placed as close as possible to the words they modify. Adjectival prepositional phrases usually appear right after the noun or pronoun they modify. So adjectival phrases answer questions like which one and what kind of. Example, many species of birds nest here. So the phrase of birds tells us what kind. Many species of what kind? Many species of birds. All right. So adverbial prepositional phrases can appear anywhere in a sentence. So adverbial phrases answer questions like when, where, how, and why. Example, the younger children stared out the window. Yes, so that's one example of an adverbial prepositional phrase. And so we have prepositions plus gerunds. And we know that gerunds are the ing form of verbs. A gerund can occur after a preposition. Thanks for coming, example. But when the preposition is to, be careful not to confuse it with the infinitive form of a verb. So I look forward to win. No, I look forward to winning at Jeopardy. So ensure that if your sentence needs the gerund form of any verb and you're using to as your preposition, make sure that the context and the agreement aligns. And so we move on to common idiomatic expressions. So we have adjective plus preposition, verb plus preposition, and common participles. So a little note on common participles. These are expressions with meanings that are different from the meaning of the verb it contains itself. If a two-word verb has a direct object, the preposition may be either separable, I filled the form out, or inseparable, I got over the stock. If the verb is separable, the direct object can also follow the preposition if it is a noun. Example, I filled out the form. If the direct object is a pronoun, however, it must appear between the verb and preposition. I filled it out. So there under the common participles section, we have some participles that have asterisks. So these would be examples of the separable participles. And just as in the example with fill out, I filled the form out, I filled out the form, I filled it out. That is how you use separable participles. So the others, they are inseparable, meaning that they stay together in the sentence. So they have to be one behind the other. Example, I ran out the room. It is inseparable. I turned down the job. Inseparable. I looked into your proposal. Still inseparable. I cannot put up with his attitude. Another inseparable participle. Right. So examples are there, and you guys can look over them and familiarize yourself with others as well. So the word but. So but is one example of a word that can be used as a preposition, adverb, and conjunction. So here we have 3 different examples for each function. So all but him were first. So we know that but would mean except in this sentence. All except him were first. Second one, there is but one solution. There is only one solution. And lastly, it was a clever but dangerous plan, showing the contrast between the 2 elements of the noun, which is the plan, right? And so we move on to problems with prepositions. Distinguishing between a preposition and an adverb. A preposition, unlike an adverb, is always followed by or governs a noun or pronoun, thus completing a phrase. Example, I fall down. Adverb, modifying fall. And then we have I fall down the ladder. Phrase acting as a preposition. So it shows the relation between I or fall and ladder. Moving on. Using correct prepositions after nouns, adjectives, and verbs. Examples: he was a contemporary of someone, not for someone. Adjective: he was contemporary with someone. And if you know the meaning of the words, if you know the meaning of the words in your sentence, then you will know which which preposition, is correct to use. Because a contemporary, which is a noun, is different from just contemporary, which is a adjective. Right. And then we have, I congratulate him on winning, not for winning. This picture is different from that, not to that. Right. So the best thing you can do is use a dictionary to help you choose the correct preposition in your sentence, especially when it is attached to a verb, I should say, or an adjective. Ensure that you use your dictionary so you know which one to use if you are unsure, that is. So I move on to noticing differences in use of prepositions. So notice the difference in meaning between the following examples. I looked over your work versus I overlooked your work. So obviously we know that look over means that they reviewed it, they read it for themselves, they took note of strengths and weaknesses, etc., etc. Overlooked, on the other hand, now means that they probably ignored it, they did not get to read it for themselves, they skipped over it, etc., etc. Then we have I took over his position versus I will overtake his car. So I took over his position, meaning that the position that the other person had, you have it now, right? Versus overtaking somebody's car, we already know what that means. So noticing differences in the use of prepositions. In the case of nouns and adjectives, the choice of preposition often varies according to the meaning. So we have, I have the key to the house, I have the key to the problem. Then we have, I am upset at you making the same mistake again, versus I am upset with you. In some cases, either of two prepositions is correct. Example, a verse to or from doing homework. So we have to and from being the prepositions in this verb preposition phrase. Confusion of between with among. Divide it between the 6 men or among the 2 boys. Between and among should be interchanged, as between is used when referring to 2 things and among when referring to more than 2. So divide it among the 6 men or between the 2 boys. Then we have another example. There was a space between each tree and the next, instead of there was a space between each tree, because it's ambiguous. How many trees are there? We don't know. But between each tree and the next, there are 2 objects being compared in this sentence, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be 2 things, but if it is 2 ideas being referred to in the sentence, then between should be used instead of among. And lastly, we have mistakes due to omitting words. Example, this quality did not add, but rather detracted from his character. The preposition to must be inserted after add, We do not add from, and from would appear as the omitted preposition in this sentence because it says detracted from. So instead we write, this quality did not add to, but rather detracted from his character, right? And so this will be the last problem with preposition we have on the slide. With that being said, we will move on to some activities. So the first one we have is state which words are conjunctions in the following passage. And of course, you can pause the video, you can attempt it on your own, and then continue as we go through the answers on the next slide. So I will read it now. As soon as I saw him, I knew that he was an escaped convict. He had neither hat nor coat and was shivering, though he tried not to show it. I did not know what to do, but if he escaped before I telephoned the police, I would be the one to be blamed. I wanted to avoid a struggle, for I was smaller than he was, so I pretended not to notice him. So in this passage, the prepositions are as soon as, neither nor, and, though, but, for, so. If you notice any other conjunctions, please write it in the comments, or you can contact me on the Google Classroom. Next, we have another activity, and the instruction says, insert a suitable conjunction into the following sentences. Again, you can try on your own and unpause your video so that you can see the answers on the next slide. And so we have, he has neither skill nor courage. Your house is as old as mine. She will not wait until the rain stops. He must either apologize or leave. I held onto the rope, but still fell. Right? So these would be the conjunctions that you would add in your sentences. Our third activity, correct the following sentences if necessary. I will not go without, you come too. There was a wall between each garden. Divide this among the two boys. He's paying no attention to you and I will take no excuse for you. So we have, I will not go unless you come too. There was a wall between one garden and the other. Divide this between the two boys. He is paying no attention to you and me. And I will take no excuse for you. So the last one is still correct, but you can also say, I will take no excuse from you. So both prepositions are correct. So that would be one of the cases we talked about before where more than one preposition can be added to a certain phrase, right? So based on your context and what you want your sentence to mean, you can choose which preposition to use, or in some cases like the averse to or from case, both prepositions that you use, they have the same meaning in the phrase, right? So I think this is our last activity. Fill in the correct preposition. So we have to answer dash a crime, to encroach dash property, insensible dash pain, confident dash success, a reflection dash his character. And so for the answers, we have to answer for a crime, to encroach on property, insensible to pain, confident of success, a reflection of his character. So I hope that you would have benefited from these exercises and from the information. I will try to upload the PowerPoint on the Google Classroom And next week, Tuesday, we will be able to start covering verbs. And I think that will be our longest lesson on a part of speech. Pronouns took us a little while, but verbs might take us a little bit longer. So hopefully after we end with verbs, that will be the end of our parts of speech section on the grammar and mechanics. We can go to constructing sentences, vocabulary, subject-verb agreement, etc., etc. So look forward to that. And on Thursday, we will continue with essay writing, and we'll be continuing on the writing process. So we had one more pre-writing technique, and we will talk about how to write your thesis, structure your paragraphs, etc., etc. So we're still on an introduction, but after that introduction is done, we will actually go into the heart of expository essays as our first essay topic. So thank you again for listening, and I hope you feel confident as we move on to another topic and as we prepare for exams. So thank you again for listening, and I will see you this Thursday.